So this video comes with the added bonus of the snoring chihuahua. Amira had her allergy shots this morning, so now she's kind of just wiped out. Normally happens that way, so she's probably going to snore her way through this entire video. So this is another Globe and Mail interview from the podcast that was recently released. So this is Hayley Ferdinand, who is Malaya's half-sister. She doesn't say a great deal, but what she says is quite interesting, so I just wanted to address it in a single video rather than put it together with any of the other interviews from this podcast. So we've heard all the chatter about the piece of blanket and that Hayley was the one who found it, and then the allegations from Daniel's side of the family that someone on Hayley's side of the family planted the piece of blanket. According to Durwood, I think it was him who also has claimed that it was Malaya's family who found the boot prints on the pipeline trail. And yet I've not heard anything about that from anyone else. And as you know, Durwood is the biggest liar on the planet. So it's probably something that sounded good in his head, but is probably really not the truth. So in terms of the blanket, so the journalists from the Globe and Mail heard the rumour about the blanket possibly being planted, and they decided to contact Hayley directly and ask her about it. So she starts off talking about the blanket, and that leads into something else, which I found very interesting. So let's just jump straight into this.
Daniel suggested that the people who found the blanket planted it. So I spoke with Malaya's sister, Hayley Ferdinand, who found the blanket, and she denies having planted anything.
We most certainly did not. And that's on everything I have, the person I am. I would not do that in the midst of, to obstruct a case for missing children, regardless if they're related to me or not. I would never.
Now, this is only the second time I've heard anything from Hayley. And the first time round, I was a bit unsure of where she was coming from because she sounded a little bit too enthusiastic in terms of basically throwing Daniel under the bus. So that was the brief interview that she did on someone's channel, I can't remember who now, where she was talking about them catching him in the bathroom doing stuff, and that's why the argument on the driveway occurred. Now, in this one, she just sounds really annoyed at being accused of this. The fact that she does sound so incensed over the allegations, that sounds genuine to me. The way she words it, the way it all just flows, you know, it's a smooth cadence. There's no stuttering, there's no stumbling over words. It just comes out, and to me that says she is completely 100% honest here. You'll note that she's not using standard contractions. She says, "We most certainly did not, and I would not do that." That's done for emphasis. Subconsciously, she's showing how annoyed she is by the fact. I would not do that. She's hammering down the point, which again makes me feel that she's being truthful here. And the I statements right through, that's on everything I have, the person I am. I would not do that. When you hear someone using I statements, then you can be pretty certain that they are being quite genuine. I think one exception that you will find is when someone is a sociopath and they're basically learning as they go. So what I mean by that is if you have a case and maybe you have someone speaking out quite frequently in that case, and you start to see changes in their behaviour, changes in their language use, then they may start, even if they began at the beginning not using I statements, they may start using I statements if they are paying attention to various analyses that are being done of what they are saying. But what we're looking at here with Hayley, this is only the second time she's spoken out. And this may have even occurred prior to the time when she spoke on that YouTube channel. But it all flows. The sentences here, at least in the first part, the sentences are complete sentences. She's using I statements. She's not using contractions. She's going with the full do not, would not. Now, the second half of her statement, she does keep changing direction. I would not do that in the midst of. To obstruct a case for missing children, regardless if they're related to me or not. The only thing that kind of niggles at me a bit is the regardless of if they're related to me or not. Because that says to me that in her mind, she could see that as being a possibility. She could see that as being possibly, if she were to do something, that could be a justification. They are related to her. But because the rest of what she's said here seems to ring true, I think that's just, this thought in her head that, well, if I were to do it, maybe I would do it because they were related to me and I was trying to do it to help move the case on or something. But yeah, it niggles at me just a little bit there. And like I said, she does change direction, but I think that is not so much about, because she doesn't pause. She just changes direction mid-stride, basically. So to me, that is her wanting to make her point. She starts saying one thing and her brain goes, this is the better way of emphasising it. You can hear in the tone of her voice that she's kind of really annoyed at this allegation. So basically, it's like almost verbal diarrhea. The words are just spewing out because she has to say this. She's defending herself. It's against the person that she is what she's telling us here.
So why do you think Daniel is suggesting that you planted it? He told that to me as well.
Probably because I was the one that was hot on his ass the whole time we were there.
Okay.
And he didn't like me from the get-go when I got there because he would not speak to any of Maria's family when we showed up to help the search for Lily and Jack. He'd put his head down. He would ignore us. He would walk away from us. He wouldn't engage in conversation, and I kept at him. I was there for Jack and Lily, and I'm still here for Jack and Lily.
So the first thing I want to point out is that in that 30-second clip, she said Jack and Lily 3 times, or at least 3 that I counted. I only was making notes on the second half there. This is such a stark contrast to anyone on Daniel's side of the family, especially when you hear Jamie constantly referring to them as those kids. So you can tell that she genuinely cares about these children. I don't know how often she would have seen them, given that what we're hearing is that the only family members that went to the trailer were Paddy and Hayden. We're only hearing that from Janie though, so who knows? But even still, when you have nieces and nephews, just because you don't see them all the time doesn't mean you don't still love them dearly. And I mean, you've seen Belinda's reaction. She was cut off from those children for the last 2 years. And you can tell how deeply she loves them. So, even if Hayley hadn't seen them quite frequently, we can tell that she cares. So again, we've got no pauses here in what Hayley's saying. We've got no backtracking, no leakage, no stuttering over various words. It all just pours out. So to me, that says that at the very least in her mind, this is how she perceived Daniel on that day when they were there. So she's saying he didn't like her from the get-go, so it was a personal thing for her. She felt that he didn't like her. And then she talks about him not speaking to any of Malaya's family, ignoring them and walking away, not engaging in conversation. Now, you can see this in one of two ways. When Daniel engages with the media, he comes across as quite confident. He certainly didn't struggle describing his search efforts and things like that. So hearing Hayley saying that he wouldn't engage with her family, or Malaya's family, because not all of them are Hayley's family, is interesting. However, first of all, she's already thoroughly established the fact that she doesn't like Daniel. Daniel doesn't like her. That's going to colour her perception somewhat. Now, to me, this is a situation where I don't have quite enough information to completely make up my mind here. You could straight away jump to the conclusion that he was maybe feeling guilty and he didn't want to talk to any of Malaya's family because he didn't want them to see his guilt. However, and this is one of those instances when I wish I was the sort of creator who could leave out bits of information that could sound like I'm being sympathetic towards someone who possibly doesn't deserve it. But there are many things that make me question if Daniel is neurodivergent. More specifically, if he could possibly have ADHD. Now, it could also have something to do with his recreational activities. I don't know how they present in terms of whether they may give a impression of neurodivergence when it's just basically that you're on stuff. However, there are things about Daniel which make me question if he could possibly be ADHD, and that includes his like for Pokemon, because what you will quite often see with people who have ADHD or ASD, autism spectrum disorder, is that they do have that somewhat Peter Pan kind of personality. So my question after what Hayley has said here is, did anyone try to engage in a conversation with Daniel one-on-one outdoors, outside of the house? And the reason I ask that is because if he is neurodivergent, particularly if he is ADHD, then trying to carry on a conversation in a crowded room would be impossible. It's all about executive function in the brain. Basically, for people with ADHD, the filter that would normally filter out all the extra sensory input, all the extra noises, all the extra visual input, that filter just doesn't exist. So for someone who is not neurodivergent, someone who doesn't have ADHD or ASD, you can sit in a room full of people, you can have a conversation with someone who's sitting on the other side of the table, and you can focus on that person and focus on what is being said. For me, and this was something that until probably about 10 years ago, I thought there was something wrong with me. Because I found when I was in a social situation, if I was like, you know, at a restaurant or at a party or somewhere like that I could not follow the conversations. And I thought maybe there's something wrong with my hearing. It was really, really, well, it still is, it's really, really awkward because people think you are snubbing them. People think you are not interested in what they're saying. When in reality, it feels like you have a hearing problem. Unless you are sitting right beside someone, almost touching shoulders in a room full of people, then actually understanding what is being said becomes a challenge. Because for someone with ADHD, your brain is taking in all the noises. It's not recognising that this person here that's talking to me is the noise that I need to be putting through the filter and the noise that I need to be listening to. So your brain is trying to process 20 people talking all at once and a whole heap of things happening all around you. So if Daniel does have ADHD, and this does apply to people with ASD as well, it depends. It's a spectrum thing. Some people yes, some people no. But if Daniel has ADHD and he was in a room in that house with a dozen or so of Malaya's family, it may be that he simply could not follow the conversations. It may be that all the noise around him was overwhelming. Because that's the other thing that people with ADHD experience. When you suddenly have all these people talking around you, it can become physically painful. I guess it's that whole filter thing again, because it's just this onslaught of sound that your brain's not filtering out, so it's just all hitting you at once. So yes, maybe that was the situation. He just simply could not follow a conversation inside the house. Maybe the not engaging, maybe the walking away. If this was all happening indoors, maybe this was because it was just too much. It was sensory overload. That said, we don't know what the actual situation was that Hayley is describing here. Was it inside? Was it in one room with a whole bunch of people? Because sometimes that person that you think is being standoffish at a party or at a bar or something, they might have ADHD, and it may just be that they are exhausting themselves trying to concentrate hard enough to actually understand what you are saying, and it's like you are speaking another language to them. If it was outdoors, well, then it's probably not that situation. It probably was that he was trying to avoid them. Or, we know that he was basically isolating Malaya from her family. It could be guilt over that. It could be that he just doesn't like Malaya's family. We've heard that he does not like Cindy. And it sounds like Hayley is not backwards in coming forward. We know that the culmination of all this was that fight in the driveway. So it could be just a situation where none of them really like each other. I would imagine there would be resentment on Malaya's side of the family for him basically keeping them away from Malaya and the children, if what we're being told is correct, and if, as in that basically Hayden and Paddy went there to the house more frequently than anyone else. Cindy and Wade picked up the children occasionally to take them for the day. But it sounds like there certainly was a level of isolation there. So it could be that there is hostility coming from both sides. So while I believe that what Hayley is telling us is her truth, in terms of circumstances, we don't know. We've only got this one account. And we know there's no love lost between the two families. We've heard Hayley a few times, and she does sound like she could be someone who basically doesn't hold her punches. Like I said, Daniel and Cindy didn't get along. Cheryl, I think she could be quite verbally aggressive if she wanted to too. So we don't know the situation here. All we know for certain is that there was clearly some tension there even before the fight occurred. And I have to say, it is frustrating when we have one side, one family who won't talk at all, and then on the other side, people who talk a lot, but finding the truth is really, really hard. So in a situation like this, it makes it harder to really establish what has gone on. I have no doubt that the way Hayley sees it is the way she's telling it. I don't think this is anything she's made up. But like I said, how was she reading the room? How was Daniel reading the room? We don't really know that. And yes, to the twit who says, well, Ninchi knows nothing. She puts forward 5 different theories. No, this is not putting forward 5 different theories. This is simply observing the fact that there is 3 sides to every story. Yours, mine, and the truth. Meaning that everybody brings their own biases into a situation. And in a situation like this, where we are only getting one side of the story, then we do have to look at what the different variables are. Quite often, there'll be clues in the language. Quite often, there will be a logical answer. But in this instance, I think we need more information to be able to really give a solid assessment. So on that note, I'm going to leave it there. I will be aiming to do an analysis of the full Daniel interview tomorrow. Today was just a messy one. Aside from Amira having her vet appointment in the morning, I got a bit distracted, as you may have seen, making a video from one of Justin from Clutch and Pearls, one of his songs. So this was kind of a bit of a late start in terms of a serious video. So I will aim to work on my analysis of the rest of the Daniel interview tomorrow. So keep an eye out for that one. So on that note, thanks for listening. If you are new to my channel, please do subscribe. Also, please hit that like button and please leave a comment below. I'm interested to know your thoughts on what was going on here between Daniel and Malaya's family. So on that note, thank you, and I'll catch you in the next one.